Welcome to the Growth Catalyst Show, where we believe that growth could come in many forms: professional, personal, company, sales, you name it. I'm your host, Dan Mahoney, founder of Transcendent Sales Solutions and a guide to a world of growth possibilities. I've spent my career empowering companies and their people with strategies that accelerate growth. I'm here to bring you stories of these business leaders and their trusted advisors to gain insights into their journeys and learn how they fuel their own growth. Just maybe their journey could become part of your own growth story. Are you ready? Let's grow. Welcome to the Growth Catalyst Show. I'm your host, Dan Mahoney, and I'm excited to have my next guest here today. Don Gage is the managing director at Pro CFO Partners, where he assists clients in steering their companies forward using his expertise in law, finance, and business. He is a seasoned financial professional with 30 years of experience in finance, operational management, real estate, banking, and law. Don has served in executive roles at large national companies, mid-cap, and startup ventures. Don, welcome to the Growth Catalyst Show.
Appreciate it, Dan. Looking forward to talking today. Thanks for the invite.
Yeah, it's great to have you today. So as I was going through your background, I noticed that one of the things you did is went to U of I, University of Illinois, in the land of Lincoln. So I'm assuming you're from Illinois if you went to U of I?
I am. Yep. Grew up there, born and raised, suburbs of Chicago, went to Illinois, Big Ten school is great. We hosted a lot of homecoming games. I think that was Illinois' role in the Big Ten, but liking their direction now with the new coach and whatnot. So I loved my time there. It was a lot of fun.
Well, as someone who grew up in Illinois, typically people who go to U of I are typically from Illinois,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
mostly up. So where in the suburbs of Chicago did you grow up?
Southwest side, Oak Forest. So it's just, I went to Marist High School, which is 115th and Pulaski, the exact city limits on the southwest side of the city of Chicago. So we were only less than 10 miles from there.
So I'm going to assume that you're a Sox fan.
No, you would think so.
Really?
It was a good assumption. Yeah, my whole family is, yes. But I was the renegade, and I don't know exactly why, but I was a Cubs fan. I must have wanted more misery in my life because being a Cubs fan is hard work. Although, it only took them 108 years, but finally won again. So if history tells us anything, I guess we got a long wait before they won again. But yeah, grew up a Cubs fan. My entire family, Sox fans. Obviously, South is White Sox territory.
As a South Sider wearing that Cubs blue, you're a brave man.
It was tough. Yeah, it was not, like I said, I decided not to make my life easy. I needed a challenge in my life. So, yeah.
So I saw that you found your way to Boston University and, with that finance degree and started a law path. Tell me about that.
Yeah. So from an early age, had the idea that I wanted to be an attorney, law school. Nobody in my family is in law, but just was sort of attracted to it and went to Boston University for a change of pace. I grew up in the Midwest, and so I wanted to kind of venture out and picked an East Coast school, and it was great. I mean, Boston, I describe Boston as the world's largest college town. I mean, there's just a ton of universities. Across the river was MIT, and just down the river is Harvard, and Boston College not far. I mean, there's just literally probably easily a dozen schools,
Fun place probably to spend a couple of years.
Yeah, so it was fantastic. Enjoyed the experience, loved the intellectual challenge of it. But by my third year, I kind of had a sense that the practice of law was not likely to be something I was going to do for the next 30 plus years. I studied finance undergrad, really enjoyed it, was attracted to that. My grandmother was with a stock brokerage company in Chicago, and I was just always very interested growing up, kind of hearing what she did and whatnot. And in college, as the college mind typically works, I'm a sophomore. My undergrad, I knew I was going to law school, so my majors were economics and political science, which means you either better go to law school or you'll be unemployed. So, in line sophomore year, the line is long. I'm guessing alcohol the previous night probably had something to do with my impatience, but I wandered over and I saw the finance line was shorter. Walked over there and said, "Hey, if I switch to finance, will it well, it messed me up. Well, I still graduated in 4 years. They said, now all your first year credits transfer. And that, in that moment, I switched to finance. And honestly, one of the, happiest set of circumstances because I really enjoyed finance, and then that obviously set myself on my path for what I really have done throughout my career has been in finance. I practiced a little bit in Chicago, but again, that's not where my passion was, and got into banking. And that was with First Union. If you're keeping your scorecard, it's now Wells Fargo, but
It's hard
that
with
was
banks.
yeah, exactly. So, but it was great. First Union was a serial acquirer. Everybody's First Union story starts with they acquired the bank I worked for. I was no different. And but it was good because they were growing. And that's actually at that time I was living in Virginia, and then they moved us to Richmond, and then they moved us to Atlanta, which was good. I was happy to get back to a larger city. Virginia was fantastic, but I was very happy to get to Atlanta, and ultimately all roads would have led to Charlotte, which is where,
The
well, now
banking
Wells
world
Fargo, I
is,
guess the East. Yeah,
yeah.
exactly. And but before I jettisoned to the home base, I got the opportunity to become the CFO for a real estate development company, a multifamily builder here in Atlanta. And again, just a nice, really happy circumstance because when I was in banking, I was doing real estate underwriting. I led a team of underwriters, and I really enjoyed the real estate. And then that, like I said, became the
Hmm.
CFO for a multifamily Canon company here. We did Class A multifamily. Our money was long, in the sense that the investor was a wealthy individual. And so that allowed us to hold our projects, which is atypical. Usually it's a build, stabilize, and sell situation. So we had our own development company, construction company, and management company. So that was my first exposure to kind of managing a staff and a team and whatnot. Well, actually, first year I started that, but that's where I helped. It's a smaller company, and so it's all hands on deck, and everybody does everything, and it was a great experience, and that just continued to lead down the real estate path. Yeah,
So tell me a little bit about what you learned from being in that corporate career, because you had, one of the things I noticed from your background is I see CFO, but I also see COO as well. I see
yeah.
a little bit of both of those. So talk about some of your, what you learned from those early experiences.
Yeah, a big corporate was great. Working for a large national bank was great. It gives a great foundation. And some people, make their career out of it. But for myself personally, and I think for a lot of people, it's that on the job MBA, if you will, that
Mhm.
you're learning a skill set and polishing a skill set and developing skills and management and whatnot. And then I, like a lot of others, then jettison to a smaller organization where, you can see your footprints a little bit more. You have more authority, more responsibility. You're thrown into the deep end pretty quickly. You figure out if you can swim or not. And so you're exactly right. But in the transitioning to operations, while my title, because of my background, finance, and so my functional role was always CFO, but like even starting a canning company, again, a small company, we did large projects and built over 3,000 units and whatnot. But from a people headcount standpoint, people actually working for the company, W-2s, it was probably about 20 or so people. And so Dick was the CEO, Dick Cannon, great guy, learned a lot from him. But yet, that was it. He was top, didn't have any second layer really of management. And so just sort of filling a void. It was like, okay, I'm the CFO today, and then tomorrow I'll be the COO, and maybe the next day I'll be the janitor and whatnot. Again, it was kind of all hands on deck, and that's where I started to develop, just a broader base of management experience, and that continued on. I went on to develop a multifamily property with my partner from Canon Company and whatnot. And that was, each of us, he was the on the ground development guy, the construction guy, knew how to put in a street, et cetera, et cetera. And then I did everything else. That's, as
Mhm.
any small business, it's, one of the two of us has to do everything. So let's figure
Mhm.
out, what we're doing. And that's just kind of continued. And in my role as I got into CFO consulting work and now with Pro CFO, particularly in the past couple of years, I have found that my assignments, when I was doing this on my own and servicing my own clients, was pretty much an even split between CFO work and COO work. And it sort of makes sense because as a CFO, you're interpreting the numbers. The numbers are telling a
Mhm.
story, but the numbers won't change themselves. In order to change the numbers, now you have to walk across the street to the operation side of the business. People change the numbers. It's people's behaviors and whatnot and whatnot. So it's a very short walk, from the
Mhm.
CFO side to the COO side. And a lot of companies don't, except for very large, deeply layered hierarchy companies, they don't have those roles segmented, and they probably don't need to have those roles segmented. And so a good CFO should be able to easily step into the
Mhm.
shoes of a COO, and a COO, except for maybe their hesitancy with numbers or version numbers, they certainly should have a command of how the money is making money,
Mhm.
how the company is making money. But it's probably easier for the CFO to be the COO.
When do companies make that decision on the transition? Is because you see a lot of CFOs wearing both hats make that. Hey, we need a COO now and a CFO. When does that
Yeah,
kind of usually happen?
I would say that's probably gets into a pretty large organization where you
Mhm.
have to start to segment that, and it comes down to people management.
Mhm.
I was in a Vistage group recently, and I don't remember the number, but how the Army sort of segments its leadership is they figured out how many people you can effectively lead or manage, how many headcount you can do, and that's how they have the different ranks and whatnot. So that's I would say the same thing. If you find if the CEO is finding that they have 25 direct reports, that's too many. They need to create another layer.
Mhm.
And then, maybe it's the COO/CFO, but then if that grows to where that CFO, COO person is managing 20, that's too many. And you kind of find, so as the company grows, it kind of finds its segmentation.
Got it. Got it. Before we talk a little bit about Pro CFO, I know you and your wife, you have two sons and a daughter,
One
and
son, two daughters. Yeah.
one son and two daughters. I'm
Yeah.
sorry,
But you
I'm
can't tell from
mistaken
their
there.
names. Yeah,
You
that's an easy
you can't
mistake
tell from the
for,
names, and I
yeah,
and so
yeah.
and again, we talked a little bit about U of I, but you've got one from that went to Auburn and one that went to University of Alabama.
Yes.
The
So there is
house
permanent,
divided.
yes. It is literally the house divided. There is permanent tension. Our Thanksgivings have been ruined for the rest of our
I
lives.
I was
Uh,
just I want to come to your house and watch the Iron Bowl because
yeah,
that has
yeah.
got to be some intensity.
It is. I mean, talk about Michigan, Ohio State is a deep, deep rivalry, and there's others throughout the nation. But I will say, and being a
Yeah.
transplanted, so literally, I don't have a dog in this fight. I'm from Georgia, Bulldogs and stuff like that. But so I'm a very enthusiastic but casual observer because I don't
Mm.
have that passion in there. So the kids naturally, when they chose, they're only a year apart. When one said, I'm going to Auburn and the next one, Alabama, the natural question became, Dad, who are you going to root for? And I was like, I am not getting into this fight. So I said, I'll root for the home team. Whoever's the home team that year, I'll root for.
Oh my
And it's
God.
been a lot of fun. I mean, it's been just incredible, to go to those universities and experience that. They're deeply passionate. And what people in the North might not understand is, why is that? And now, but they don't have pro teams. I mean, Alabama and Auburn are the pro teams, and same with Ole Miss and whatnot. So in
Hmm.
the South, college football is on another level. When the first time I went to an Auburn game, my son was kind of preparing me and said, "Hey, this is a big deal and stuff like that." I said, "Hey, I went to a Big Ten school. I've seen big league football and stuff. Our team wasn't." Performing the big league football, but Michigan, Ohio State came into town, so I'm used to it. And I get down there, and there's these signs that say no parking before Thursday. And so I said, Dakota, where do the students park, before Thursday? He goes, that's for game day. I said, okay, I've got a second question. They know the game's on Saturday, right? So it is just incredible. I mean, people go down there, before
Nothing
Thursday
like
before,
going.
and
Yeah,
yeah,
nothing like going to an SEC football game.
yeah,
It is an experience in all of them. It is definitely a cult. So,
yeah.
um, so before we get into pro CFO, tell me, what do you like to do in your spare time for relaxation?
Yeah, I'm addicted to golf, which is a terrible addiction for you young people out there. If you can, try not to go down that path. But yeah, I enjoy golf, and we travel a little bit, but for the most part, we just enjoy spending time with the kids. They've gone on and started their careers. My oldest daughter, the Alabama graduate, she's out in Colorado. I just got back from there, and it's just very rewarding to watch the kids kind of find their
Mhm.
own footing and start to go down their own path. So between that and golf, and then in the fall watching college football, it seems to take up most of my time.
The year goes very quickly. So,
Yeah.
so let's switch to pro CFO. I know there's a lot of CFO firms out there, and everyone is they're not all the same. Everyone's very different and has their secret sauce. So, give me the elevator pitch about pro CFO. I'd love to learn about your firm and learn how different you are and your value proposition.
Let's take a moment for a quick word from our sponsor. This episode of the Growth Catalyst Show was brought to you by Transcendent Sales Solutions. Whether your company is facing uncertainty, declining sales, or resource limitations, Transcendent Sales has the solution. Their team has decades of experience helping businesses find alignment to meet their growth goals and transforming underperforming sales organizations into revenue-producing market leaders. They take a hands-on, results-oriented approach to solving sales challenges. Visit transcendentsales.com to learn more and subscribe to the bi-weekly Growth Catalyst newsletter for insightful growth strategies. Transcendent Sales Solutions, empowering businesses to reach new heights. And now back to the show.
Yeah, absolutely. The biggest differentiator, and I didn't realize it or know it at the time that I joined, but it is a CFO firm. And you think, well, Don, there's a lot of CFO companies out there and whatnot. And I started out when I transitioned into this. I was with one of them, had a great experience, but that experience, that the current traditional playbook of CFO companies is the CFO landscape is comprised of solopreneurs. I've done that, people doing that on their
Mhm.
own, and then a collection of solopreneurs. And that's what I would refer to as these other companies is they're a company, but they are this the CFOs within it are they're sourcing their own clients, servicing their own clients, doing the admin work. Again, it kind of the company gives you a platform, if you will, but you're your own fiefdom. You're not part
Mhm.
of a firm per se. So Pro CFO is a firm. Think of a law firm. Think of an accounting firm. Think of a large consulting firm. And oftentimes, so in those instances, so what's the distinguishing factor? The firm is generating 70% plus of the client sourcing. The CFOs do a role,
Mhm.
but their primary role in Pro CFO is to service the clients. So the distinguishing a client might say, "That's interesting, Don, but I
Mhm.
don't really care how you found me and how you source me. How does that translate to a value add to me?" So if I'm sourcing, that's my primary role as
Mhm.
managing director is to grow the Atlanta area, both in terms of clients and in terms of CFOs to service the clients in the region. So between myself, the other managing directors, the founders, Nelson and Hala, and the firm's centralized marketing, we generate north of 70% of the clients. But yet I'm not going to retain that client service work. And so when I'm not going to retain the client service work, then I pivot to what's in the best interest of the client. And there's a number of factors. There's industry expertise, there's location, and then there's personality type. Are they, is this going to be the right mesh with that owner, president, and their team? But industry is usually the leading indicator of it. And so when I was doing it on my own, or with one of these other companies, which again is a collection of solopreneurs, I was doing the same activity and I would run across something. And I'm no different than any CFO. I'm an expert in 1 to 3 to 4 industries or fields. And then I can do a good to adequate job in something outside of my wheelhouse. But think about it as a client. You're not looking for good to adequate. I mean, adequate's not even on the table, and good was the floor of what you're looking for. You want expert, and so when I come across somebody and we have the whole variety of clients that you serve, there's no one CFO that would have that level of expertise. So when we come across it, it'd be like, well, Dan, tell me about your company, what industry are you in, what your challenges and whatnot. And so then based on that, I go I have 50 CFOs, but I have 2 in the Atlanta area. I have 50 CFOs to draw from, because unless there is a specific reason for the location, and sometimes, it is dictated by the client. And if so, we find somebody that both serves the location and the industry. It's, short of the location being an issue, I just go into our deep bench and say, who's
the right
most
fit?
Able to make a meaningful impact immediately with that. And, when you ask that question, it's going to be, what's your experience level? For example, I spent most of my career in real estate. So if I come across a real estate client, I pass that credibility test very quickly, just in a 5-minute dialogue of, you're talking about the industry and whatnot, and they can sense that I've been there, walked in those shoes, and know it. They want that same confidence if it's manufacturing, nonprofit, a service company, whatever it is. They want somebody who knows their business. They're not looking for somebody who will figure out their business. That's not what they pay us to do. So that is definitely the big distinguishing factor. There's a lot of tremendous individuals out there in those other companies and the solopreneurs. But when you're looking for somebody, particularly in referral, when I'm out there networking with other people who aren't going to be a client but refer, it's a lot easier for them to say, I don't want to figure out what you're good at and not good at. I just want to throw this over to you and say, put one of your expert CFOs on this so that you can take care of my friend, my client, whatever that relationship was. Because giving referrals is, the reason we're always hesitant in it is it's a reflection on us. We want to make sure that you're doing a good job. And so that light bulb moment, as I've kind of gotten into the marketplace and described that difference, that's been an aha moment, both obviously for the clients. They love hearing that. They're like, yes, that's exactly what I want. But also for the networking partners to say, okay, this is going to make my job a lot easier. I don't have to, try to get a relationship with 10 CFOs and figure out, okay, exactly what's Don good at, what's Sandy good at, et cetera. They're just like, let me just go to a pro CFO and they've got somebody that will be good at what my client needs.
So tell me, when you go into a client engagement and you start with a new client, what are some common things that you see that, right coming in, that are usually, where the problems lie?
Yeah, it's really a lot of ours, virtually all of our assignments are somehow, some way related to their comfort or discomfort with their numbers. The typical business owner, and some of these businesses will get to quite a large scale in terms of dollar amount, but yet typically the founder or the president is not from a finance background. They're good at whatever product or service they deliver, and they're typically very passionate about it. So they're usually pretty good at selling it. And so their functional role, becomes the chief, advocate for their product or service, and then it grows and whatnot. And the accounting and finance is always something like, okay, honestly, in the first year or two, it's not that important. It's figure out if you've got a company first before you worry about start to generate revenues before you worry about counting them. So they've got to get through that part. But then as the company grows, they again they sort of back table that as like, yeah, I should dig into that a little bit more, but it's not their highest priority, which is natural. And so when we get an engagement, when they get connected with us, it is typically they can't exactly put their finger on it, but they know something's missing. They're like, and I've had recently two different clients describe it the same way: is I want to be able to make decisions and feel comfortable with the decisions I'm making. I find myself hesitant to make a decision because I'm like, am I analyzing the data correctly? And then when I make the decision, I'm not confident in it, and so they start to get to the point where they're growing and they've got to start to make some pretty important decisions that, could affect the trajectory of the company. And so that's when they stumble upon, and a lot of times they'll say they very well might have somebody on their staff that's acting in the role of controller or CFO. They're likely a controller, very capable, very good controller, and that's what they need. And, a common question is, what's the difference between a CFO and a controller? And it is backwards looking versus forwards looking. You need a controller in an accounting team to do the counting of what has happened. To take our analogy as a Cubs fan, what were the runs, hits, and errors of the game we played? A CFO is where the owner comes in and says, should we get a new second baseman? And it's like, okay, what's on the market? How much does it cost? Why are we thinking we need a second baseman? What is the productivity levels? How is that going to get us to, the World Series and whatnot?
Tactical and so versus strategic. It's really
that's exactly right. Yes. Yeah. And you need the historical information as your basis, but you're right. The owners are coming to us and saying, I don't feel comfortable with the strategic decisions that I'm making. And the reason being is they don't have that strategic financial partner on their team. So that's the role that we serve. And to tell you the truth, most companies don't need a full-time CFO. When people, when I'm engaging out there networking and everybody's like, okay, I work with small to medium businesses from X to Y. I've gotten away from the X and Y because we all water down the X, because let's say our number was $2 to $10 million was a sweet spot. But then I'd say, well, I do work with clients $1 million. So then I say $1 million. And then it's like, well, I would work with clients for $20 million. So I say $30 million. So and then people water down the X and the Y, and we basically just end up eliminating the person who cuts our lawn and Amazon. And so it's like, okay, that doesn't tell me a lot. So how I answer it now is a couple of years and a couple $1 million. The business has been around for a couple of years and they've generated a couple $1 million in revenue. That's the point in which they start to need, a CFO. And then once they start to need a CFO, they never stop needing one unless they sell the company, or it grows to the complexity where it's like, hey, I need a full-time CFO. There's enough to do here. But most companies don't need that, short of you being a public company or a company that's constantly in the capital markets, debt and equity. You're always doing transactions, or you become really large and complex, multiple divisions. Maybe you're transacting business overseas, so you've got different currencies and stuff. It's just become this big, large, complex thing. It's not a dollar amount. We've got clients $50 to $100 million. It's more the complexity. So anybody short of that, which is probably 90% of the companies out there, need some form of a CFO, but they don't need one on a permanent basis.
What I see sometimes is you have the CFO title in the business, but really they're more of a controller.
Correct. Yeah. And the owner doesn't know that. So they're thinking, I've got a CFO, but something's missing.
Yeah.
What they have is an excellent controller, and they need that person. And we don't go in and change titles. We don't do that. We just come in to help. As you can imagine, when we first come in, the finance team isn't, they're thinking, why? And so they feel challenged, and the operations team as well, because to your earlier point, a lot of what we do, we become a member of the C-suite. That's the other thing. These companies don't have a C-suite. They're not large enough. They might have one or two key people within their organization that they talk to, but even then, they don't feel comfortable telling them everything. And so they've, got a friend or something like that. That's the one advantage. While we don't consider ourselves consultants and we don't consider ourselves fractional, because the CFO consultant is outside and fractional is part-time, and the CFO is neither one of those. So we are our client's CFO. It's just the hours that different. A full-time CFO to one company is, 30 hours a month, and a full-time CFO to, a huge company is a full-time equivalent is 2,200 hours. And so it's anywhere in there. But for the company that, needs a CFO for 400 hours in a year, you are their full-time CFO. Think of it, if you introduce your friend who's your attorney or your accountant, you don't introduce them at a party and say, "This is Barbara, she's my fractional accountant." You say, "This is Barbara, she's my accountant." It's understood and known that she's not on your payroll. She's not a full-time employee. She does all the accounting that you personally need, and same with your attorney. So we're no different in that regard. And the one thing that does help, because we are not in the organization, that separation allows the owner to come to us. So I don't have any personal investment in my fiefdom within the organization. So when the owner comes and asks me a question, about HR, or should we, relocate to Indiana, or whatever it is, they know that I'm not going to be like, "Geez, I don't want to relocate to Indiana, so I'm gonna poo-poo this idea because I don't love where he's going with this." Or, "What do you think about Bob?" "Well, Bob's my fishing buddy. I think Bob's a great guy." I don't bring any of that into it, and so they'll get the honest counsel. It's not that the employees are doing them a disservice, but we're all human beings and we all operate out of self-interest, and so we don't
always, what does it mean for me? Absolutely.
Yeah. So for us, it's just like, okay, let me give you some honest counsel on that, because whatever decision you make, move to Indiana, release Bob, whatever it is, it's not going to affect my world. I don't have any, impact. It's not going to impact me. And so therefore, I'm going to give you honest counsel.
Absolutely. Well, and I always, as a fractional sales leader, just, hey, my interest is the owner, the CEO, is your interest, and I have nothing but your interest at heart. And that's my skin in the game, is your success.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
So, Don, share a brief success story of somebody that a company that Pro CFOs work with, and give us a little bit of what you guys have come into and the outcome.
Yeah. So for ours, the engagements are long-standing. And so the outcome is you're continuing to help the company grow and succeed. And, recently have onboarded a company that great sales, north of $25 million, but they're in a very price competitive business, so very thin margins, but their margins are lower than they should be. And so, we'll be able to, with some changes and some recommendations, be able to significantly improve those margins. It's scary to operate a 25, but they'll net $700,000, $800,000, and think, wow, okay, more is always better, but that's good. But when you're operating a $25 million company, the cash flows, can swing dramatically. It's not a steady. If I'm making $900,000 a year, bottom line, it's not a steady $75,000 each month. And if I've got $25 million in sales, we're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions of dollars on a monthly basis in a swing. And so this company that, if they can get to the finish line, is going to net $700,000-$800,000. There will be times during the year where they're break even or negative. And that causes a lot of sleepless nights. We should be able to, there's many initiatives that will help them with, but we should be able to turn that around and add another $700,000-$800,000. Again, using industry experience. The classic example, these are founders that are very passionate. They're excellent at selling their product, at representing their product, but they don't have the background of finance. And so some of the historical decisions and agreements that they've made and whatnot have compressed their margins. And so it's very rewarding when we get to that point of where now they've got some breathing room and now they can make decisions because they've got the money so that they can be a little bit more forward looking, just as opposed to reactionary. So that would be, a good example of what we do in terms of the wins are the company is thriving. The owner is feeling less pressure. The owner is optimistic. Recently, I had a client that my initial introduction to her was she was thinking of selling, and she loved her business. She had built a great business, but she had made some personnel decisions and kind of lost control of the company a little bit, and it was not the right people, right seats situation. And, I recognized that pretty early on. We made those changes. So again, it's like, geez, Don, you're the CFO. And now all of a sudden you're rearranging, the chairs on the deck. Again, it is a short walk across the street to operational because we weren't going to be able to fix the numbers until we got the right people there. And the wrong people were causing her to not want to own the company anymore. And she was the driver of the company. Without her passion and her leadership, the company wasn't going to survive. Mm-hmm. So we made those changes, and it's been extremely rewarding because she's fully engaged now and looking to, 9 months ago, I think I want to sell. Can you help me with my numbers? To now, should we expand to Florida? Should we expand throughout the Southeast? There's a lot of potential. And it's those sorts of things that are extremely rewarding. So I won't have the final success story until, we grow the company and she hands it off to the employees or sells and stuff like that. But our role is, again, once they start to engage with us, they don't stop needing us until that termination event. And so it's a very rewarding journey of milestone improvements and accomplishments. So you've got a lot, and it's extremely rewarding to watch that. And you would think, well, it's not your company and stuff like that, but you develop a great relationship with these people. Mm-hmm. You're their biggest cheerleader, and so mm-hmm. their wins, you love to celebrate, and their challenges, you take head on. So it's extremely rewarding to be able to help a diverse group of clients on their path to what their original vision was. And that happens a lot too, is like, man, when I got into this, I was so excited and so passionate, and now it's become drudgery, and to kind of restore that spark to them again, to take some of that off their hands so that they can focus on what they're good at, which is their passion and their vision and their front-facing leadership. That's our role, and that's what we enjoy doing.
Well, and it's a great example, a couple examples of what you guys do. And I think it says a lot about we'll call it our fractional business, whether you're in finance or sales or CFO or operations or HR. We hear these stories all the times where we're able to go in and bring that vigor back because we're a new set of eyes. And, and again, we know how to move quickly in what we do based on our expertise. So, Don, this has been a great conversation. I've really enjoyed it. Last question is, if someone's interested in talking to Don Gage or learning more about Pro CFO, what's the best way to do that?
Our website, my contact information's on there. So Pro CFO Partners, and my email is Don.Gage and Pro CFO Partners. Reach out, or if it's easier to reach out to you, Dan, because your audience knows you, that's fine, and it'll find its way to my door. But go onto our website and we'll be able to connect. And
you're also very active on LinkedIn as well. So.
Yeah.
Don is easy to find on LinkedIn. So Don, I appreciate you taking the time today, and thanks for appearing on the Growth Catalyst Show.
Appreciate it. Thanks for the time.
And that's a wrap for today's episode of the Growth Catalyst Show. Remember, you can take these stories of growth and make them part of your own journey. Learn from them, draw inspiration, and let them guide your path of growth. I'm your host, Dan Mahoney, and I look forward to our next journey together. If you've enjoyed the show, please subscribe and leave a review. Until next time, keep growing.